here. Can't wait to talk with you and learn what you have to share with us. Our cadence has been we just kind of like do a roll call to see who's here, um, um, and then we kind of go into the regular business. What I'd like to start with after we do roll call is Ashia will talk about the outreach program efforts, kind of where we are and what we need from our members and board members, and then we'll hear from Nicole. Does that sound okay? Okay. Well, welcome everyone. It is September 30. We are well on our way. We are about I think we're about 2 weeks, and Ashia and Ray will keep me honest on this, and Elena, about 2 weeks from the start of early voting, which means folks will begin voting on question. Ashia and her team have been doing a great job with the outreach and spreading the word about question H, which will hopefully be approved and give us the start to local control. But a lot more work ahead, and she's going to talk about that in just a second. Ashia, how about just do some greetings? I'll do the roll call, and then I'm going to kick it back to you to talk about the outreach. Sound good? Okay.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Nicole. It's nice to meet you. I'm definitely looking forward to you talking about some of the work that you have done, listening to us and giving us any advice that we could use over the next 40 days as we march towards Election Day. And that's it. I look forward to us kind of discussing what we're going to work on over the next month or so, and us just working together to bring it home.
Okay, so Kaylin Young just sent me a note saying early voting doesn't start until October 27. So we got that. That's good to know. All right, so top of the order roll call. Ashia, obviously here. Is Senator Corey McCray on yet? Delegate Stephanie Smith.
Here. Good morning, all.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How appropriate. I ended my night last night with your husband and begin my day today with you. I love the book ending of that. Oh gosh. City Council President Nick Mosby. Nikki Thompson. Oh, hey, Nikki.
This is Nikki for Council President Mosby. Good morning.
Super. Good morning. Andy Smullian, Commissioner Michael Harrison. Shantae Jackson, Director of MONSE. City Solicitor Jim Shea.
Yeah, I'm here.
Civilian Review Board. Robert Cherry from the FOP.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. I'm here.
Welcome. Good morning. Any representative from Vanguard Justice? Mark Washington from CHUM.
Present.
Ray Kelly.
Good morning, everyone. I'm present.
Good morning. Kaylin Young.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Trey Murphy. Lydia Walther Rodriguez. Tyler Adamson. Any board members that I overlooked? Lauren Perez, we know is here. I think I saw Ben Guthorn, legislative reference. Did I see Ben?
Yes, I'm here, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you, Ben. I see Elena DePietro is here.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. What about Adam Abadir? All right. Anyone who is on who I did not acknowledge?
Aaron DeGraffenreich from the Council President's Office.
Good morning. Good morning, Aaron. How could I forget you? I can't. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? All righty, let's go then back over to Ashia and get a little update on the outreach.
Okay. So Miko, just a quick overview, and I'm sure we can talk a little more as we get into the presentation. What we have done so far, we've had a number of public meetings throughout the city. We attempted to break up the meetings by police district. That's kind of how, when it's citywide, the city has done things in the past. And just in full transparency with all that's going on in the world and in Baltimore City, we have not had the lead time that we would have liked as far as inviting folks. So we have not had large crowds at these meetings. All of the meetings are streamed live on Facebook. So I'm imagining the recording is there as well. So we could point people there. We have also started doing smaller meetings. So going to community associations and getting the word out in that way in a more intimate setting. Through that, we found out that there are not a lot of people to know about our issue or our topic, and that we need broader outreach. So that kind of brings us to where we are now. So we've the leadership team had a meeting with the mayor's communication team and the mayor's staff that does direct community outreach. So we're going to ramp up communications through like the mayor's platform. We're going to work with the people, the community liaisons, to make sure that they have the information and that they're blasting it out. As a committee, the community leaders that all have platforms, that all have organizations, we're going to do like a social media toolkit to make sure that that information is being utilized for those who are on the committee. We're also doing the same with the mayor, city council president. We want to bring them back to the table to make sure that they are also carrying the message forward, that this is something that's important to Baltimore City and that we need it to be passed. And there was an idea about having maybe more of like a citywide town hall meeting. But that is where we are. We have about, I don't know the exact count, Caitlin could tell me a little more, but I think it's something similar to 35 days at this point. If that 38 days until the election. So we don't have a lot of time. And we would love some of your expertise about how to just get the message down. Also, Delegate Smith, we would like to have a conversation with you and Senator McCray around how we can work with you all to get the message out as well. Did I leave anything out, Dana?
No, you didn't leave anything out. It's we're at the stage where every day is critical that there be some messaging on the importance of this initiative, this charter amendment that will be on the ballot. It's what Baltimore wants, and we need to make sure that we're trying to deliver what Baltimore has said it wants, and we need all hands on deck. Just an observation that the in-person meetings have been thin in attendance. But what we felt was important is that anyone who was watching online know the breadth of the organizations and the entities that are supporting this effort, because you're part of the board. And we very much need you to message that out to all of the constituents that y'all represent, individually. Collectively, we're pretty mighty. We're very mighty. But we've got a lot of work to do. So that's the charge. That's the rally. That's the work. That's the space we're in. So thank you.
So we'll pass it over to you.
Back to me. Okay,
No,
so
Nicole.
oh,
Are we ready for Nicole or no, not yet?
yeah, we're ready for Nicole. And what I'd like you to do, introduce yourself, give us a little bit about your background. We're so appreciative that you're here, and we'll roll from there. And while we're pausing, I'm just gonna make sure that there's no board member that has any questions, comments, concerns about what we've shared so far. All right, hearing none, let me go on mute and hand it over to Nicole.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I put my finger up for 1 second because I was like writing a flurry of questions that I wanted to kind of tease through while we were talking today, so that it could help inform like me a little bit more and to promote more of a conversation. So maybe like a thought, so we could be thought partners in what you're doing going forward in the next 38 days. So I'm Nicole McBride. I am a lifelong Chicagoan, born and raised here. I have been a community organizer in Chicago for 17 years, more years than I probably want to count at this point. And so I've worked in my history on a number of things, primarily, I'm so sorry, give me 1 second. Working from home brings all kinds of wonderful things and sounds. So most of my work in community organizing has been centered around coalition building. So I've always worked with coalitions and kind of wrangling people together to move on a solid agenda. And so I think that I have gained a lot of experience in my years from everything from education reform to police accountability and criminal justice reform here in Chicago and throughout Illinois. Most recently, I led the Grassroots Alliance for Police Accountability in Chicago that so it came together right after the release of the video of the police murder of Laquan McDonald. Um, right after that, I won't bore you with all of the details, but we came together as community organizations and community members to develop an ordinance that is now in place called the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability with community or district councils. That was a 6-year battle, and we actually are finding ourselves in a similar position as you are right now, because even though the commission itself is appointed through through the mayor indirectly, these district councils are elected positions, and there will be 3 elected district council members in each district, and we have 22 police districts here in Chicago. So pretty big undertaking for that level of civic engagement. And so generally speaking, the ordinance itself would provide, is probably one of the most strongest across the country, with the level of oversight and community input into the policing structure here in Chicago, the policing structure and oversight structure. So it's not just focused on just the police department, but as well as the police board and what is called the civilian Office of Police Accountability, both of which are back-end accountability measures. Once something bad has happened, those 2 entities step in to kind of review the footage and make recommendations on disciplinary actions for the police officer involved. So that's a little bit about me. It's a little bit about the ordinance. I guess I'm thinking that we're more here to just talk about, all the work that you all are doing. I have several questions, if that's okay, to kind of help inform like even what I would think about the work that you're doing. I think this is amazing. My initial kind of thought was, I remember reading and just like general research around policing across the country that Baltimore's police agency was controlled by the state and not the city. And I thought that was so interesting for multiple reasons. I couldn't imagine Illinois being responsible for Chicago Police Department. Maybe because of the size. I know Baltimore's a little bit smaller than Chicago. But it's just such and because I also am not very familiar around all the state politics there, I just think we have so many, even in Illinois, small police agencies, collar cities, and things like that. And the geography and the politics look so different in each of these cities that I couldn't imagine the state running and making decisions for all of these individual police agencies. I guess there could be some benefits to it, but I can also see the bad side. So my first question is what prompted this? I think your names aren't over your Dana. You mentioned earlier that this is what the city wanted, that Baltimore residents wanted. How did you all figure that out? That this kind of change is something that residents wanted?
So that's a great question. There have been sort of scholarly looks at the history of the Baltimore City Police Department and how it was not always controlled by the state of Maryland. And it was a decision that was made many, many decades ago, and it's persisted. I really think that after, I say the murder of, oh my God.
Freddie Gray.
That's all. Freddie
Thank
Gray?
you.
Okay.
I was going to say George Floyd. After the murder of Freddie Gray, there were lots of conversations and that there needed to be change in our police department. And I think it really manifests for people then that a lot of the changes that were wanted were ones that we had to go to the state of Maryland to ask permission to do, or to ask support to do. And in a nutshell, that really was the driving force in a lot of ways. And it remains that there are some even policy decisions that the Baltimore City Police Department needs to make, and we have to go to the state of Maryland to get permission to do those. We just went through a redistricting process. It was mandated by the state of Maryland. But even if we wanted to do it on our own, we couldn't do it on our own without the state of Maryland saying it is okay. Maryland it's not the largest state. I think there's 24 different counties. Y'all will correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to get a note in a minute from my deputy saying, no, there's like 48
counties and a city of Baltimore, so 24 jurisdictions.
Okay, so I was right. 24 jurisdictions. Of those 24, Baltimore City is the only one that does not control its police department. And we have a lot of needs. We have a lot of decisions we have to make. And so, yeah, it was really because of our outlier status and tremendous need that we realized we needed to make a change. And I'm going to that was Delegate Stephanie Smith endorsing my number of 24. She might have things to add, and I'm going to open it up to others that want to add about like why we're here. How do we know that Baltimoreans want this?
Yes, Madam Chair, and great to meet you, Nicole. I apologize I can't be on camera at this exact moment. I had been in transit, but I do want to say thank you for taking the time to be with us. And to the chair's point, to Dana's point, this has been in existence since approximately around the Civil War. So it's not like a new dynamic. It's actually pretty long-standing, and that also reflects the fact that until I believe the 70s, the mayor of Baltimore could not even appoint the police commissioner, that role itself. So to date, in recent times, the mayor has the ability to appoint a commissioner, but major policy decisions like the one the chair mentioned, myself and Senator McCray put in a bill to allow with every census the ability for a commissioner to use that data and other indicators to adjust the boundaries of our police districts accordingly that had not previously been adjusted in about 50 years. So I think one of the reasons why the public also has been interested in this is that oftentimes people are asking many of our good friends and colleagues on the city council to do things, not realizing that perhaps the authority to trigger certain types of policy changes did not reside within the city itself. And so Baltimore is the only major city in Maryland, similar dynamics for Chicago to Illinois. And as such, you have a situation where a lot of jurisdictions, very unlike our city, are essentially given an opportunity to have policy input on how our commissioner is able to do their job in part. And so I think many people felt that that was not appropriate. And I do believe that despite the fact that this is a unique scenario, we do realize that other more traditional setups have not left communities fully protected from abuse. So I don't think we're so naive to think that the structural change alone will solve our problem. So we think it's a closer opportunity for community oversight.
Got it. Because that was about to be my next question is what change do you all anticipate or are you communicating will happen if this happens? So what would this trigger? I think that you, Stephanie, kind of led into, that was going to be my second question. And so this provides more of a pathway to more democratic policing, more community input, so forth and so on, in a way that could not happen if it was state run, because then you have to think about like like doing a statewide legislative push to get things done.
And also, Nicole, when you consider that the majority of our officers do not live in the city, they often reside in the other jurisdictions. So sometimes the decisions and reference points and touch points of other state legislators will be at a default to the perspective of the officers that are their constituents.
True. Okay. That's interesting as well. Okay. So my next question is, have you all been able to effectively communicate that part to community members at large or to the community? Because I was going to ask, are you all working with, and Aisha?
Ashia.
Ashia, I'm sorry. I think that you mentioned earlier that you all are working with community groups and community-based organizations and so forth and so on. So have you all in your messaging been able to, like, can you work with a strategic communications firm to kind of package these talking points in a way that helps, Baltimore residents who would vote on this to understand fully what this would mean for them?
So can we work with a strategic communication firm? That I cannot answer because I do also believe there could possibly be some budgetary restraints, but that definitely needs to happen. We do have like a PowerPoint presentation. We're getting a one page. Well, we have a one pager as well. We did get feedback that maybe the language wasn't getting straight to the point the way it needed. So I do agree with you that we need something that just has those bullet points to give, someone told us, make sure you give the positives of why we need this.
Right. So then my next question, I'm so sorry, I have so many questions. It's just
fine.
And to I guess tease this out a little bit more because it's so little time. Where's the philanthropic community on this?
That's a great question. I know there's been pushes and conversations about this legislation for years and years and years. I will pass it over to either Kaylin or Ray to kind of talk about maybe if any philanthropic groups have been involved in SJCJ work. But as far as this actual committee, we have not engaged philanthropy. So that's interesting. And if you could give maybe context behind how that could help, I guess like funding our campaign, is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah. I mean, the reality is like for us with let's just say passing Apple, which was huge. It's no way in the world I could have did that without having philanthropic support, right? It's no way that I could have done that without having a philanthropic partner who was a champion to make all of the rest of the philanthropic community in Chicago understand why they needed to get behind this, right? And so I think I don't know what the philanthropic landscape looks like in Baltimore. I would imagine that there are, amongst the community organizing groups that you work with or the community organizations that are working on this, they more than likely have some philanthropic arm or a supporter funder that is funding their work to address police misconduct or community engagement around this. And it seems like they would be a natural that would be a natural conversation for them because let's face it, they sit on money, right? So, for them to be able to provide, $15,000-$20,000 of support for a full court press on this issue, if they're funding it in other ways, it just to me makes sense that, to have a conversation with someone with a philanthropic partner in the city or the state that supports these issues, but also cares deeply about this, it seems like they would be able to be persuaded to give some non-discretionary funds to get the calm support that you need.
Just really quick, Ray, were there any pushers or any champions when you all started talking about this work?
Good morning, Nicole, and thank you for that input. And that is an important piece of all of it. So I don't know if Lydia's on, but we have formed a committee for local control, nonpartisan effort to actually do what she said, the education part. So I think the canvas started on the 18th of this month. I'm not sure of the day-to-day numbers, but I know at last check-in, they had over 1,000 pledges to vote for local control and 300 picture pledges with people holding up the pledge card. And I think that's the key. Ashia, me and you talked about that before, is this has to be an actual campaign that actually informs people that this thing exists. So that's kind of what we're doing. They do have a full volunteer and paid canvas happening right now just to kind of gain that momentum. And we're partnering with Out for Justice in Hope, Baltimore to do this civic action trainings that we've been doing every month. So we're trying to get the word out there, but there isn't a dedicated champion. We kind of take on the onus because we are funded to do that type of direct police reform. And you know yourself, this has been a long time issue with getting accountability. And like Dana said, this is where all of this work started because there was a call for accountability, and state control posed so many obstacles that we felt that accountability has to start with access. And the majority of the impacted community didn't have that access to go and advocate in Annapolis in the middle of the week when we've got our own issues with work and school and things like that. So that's what we're trying to fill the gap. But I think it's important that the city, who the administration has always been in support of this effort, that they take on some of that onus and help in channeling some of those funds so we could use that higher platform just to educate the populace that this is actually a thing that can only happen if people vote for it. So that's what we're doing now. I don't know if Kaylin or Lydia wants to add anything to that, but there is an effort to try to get that support and bring enough attention to the effort.
Can I just ask this other question? Is BPD behind this as well? Like, are they in support? So, okay. That's helpful, but then obviously they're not kicking in any funds, but are they?
Well, just to level set, BPD is funded by the city of Baltimore, even though a lot of the decisions have to be kicked up to the state level. They are funded by the city of Baltimore, and it's sort of a weird, structure, hybrid structure, but they are very much in support of this. They're not on today, but we do know that they are supportive. What we haven't talked about and what we will talk about, because we're obligated to talk about it, is the form of local control. We can't even get there until we know that we can have, the Baltimore Police Department be an agency of the city of Baltimore. And so that's what this legislation will do for us. But yeah.
Okay.
And the funding, the city of it, this is the city's legislation, and the city is, funding. We could spend more money, but we're gonna do whatever we need to do to push this out and spread the word.
Yeah. So again, I completely agree. That the city, but again, now all I have, my only reference point really is Chicago, but the city will go to funders in Chicago and say, hey, can you provide support, right? And so I think even with BPD and the city being such a champion, like that actually provides even more leverage for for the philanthropic community to say, okay, we can, we're supporting all these other efforts. And of course, it's about framing and making sure that, the messaging that the philanthropic community supports is not lobbying language. It is more community education around, being able to have democratic process and community voice and things like that. And, indirectly kind of pointing back to, if you vote for this, this is what you get. Right. And so, which is why I was asking, or I went down this line of questions about strategic messaging and, a comms team that could actually help to hone some of those messages so it's not confusing. My last question, because I feel like Danny, you about to say something. I just want to, maybe you can answer this as well in the middle of this, is what is voter turnout like for this election cycle traditionally, particularly amongst the Black and Brown communities who are impacted by this the most?
Yeah, good question again. And I'm going to kick that over to um, Kaylin Young, Stephanie Smith, and other electeds who know the answer to that
One
question.
question before you answer, Caitlin. I had a question to add on top of that as well. What is needed for the initiative to pass? So we know it's on the ballot. Is it a certain percentage of people who have to say yes? Is it like what is needed basically? Because it's on the ballot. Like if 3 people say yes, is it okay? If 100 people say yes, but 1 person says no, like what gets us there is my question. And then if you could answer the turnout and how that would affect the question passing, please.
Yeah, thank you. Miko Kaylin Young. I'm Deputy Director of the Civil Rights Office, but I used to work with the ACLU of Maryland, helping work on this bill as an advocate. And I serve on this board as a community member. And just to give you some context, this board is kind of it's a conjunction, it's a meshing of a lot of, it's a board that we put together to touch on a lot of different stakeholders. So you've got legislators here, you've got the FOP here, you've got community members here, and you've got government officials and representatives. To pass, we just got to get 50% plus 1 vote. I mean, we just got to win. More yeses than nos. Turnout, I think, I don't know how, when you say turnout, whether if you're saying like, there's going to be enough people that's going to vote in favor. I mean, I anticipate that we're probably going to not, it's not going to be the hardest thing for this to pass. I mean, it's pretty popular. But turnout in Baltimore is, I think, generally around 25%. I actually don't know that number. But I anticipate that whatever the turnout is, that we should be in a position and a posture where people will read the question and likely vote yes. And in Baltimore, we've had a history where the vast majority of the questions that are placed before voters generally pass. So it'll be, and I think only 1 or 2 have failed in the last 2 decades. So we are in a position of strength. I'll put it that way. But certainly, just I think at this point, trying to make sure we do our due diligence to get this passed. And the last thing I want to just say, I want to just touch on one of your earlier questions, which was talking about how we got to the community to learn, that this is what they wanted. On top of what everybody else said, we also started to push maybe 5 years ago, maybe not that long, like 4 years ago, where we did town halls across the city. Council president at the time, who was our current mayor, put together kind of a legislative package and then just kind of championed it around. We did 9 different town halls in different parts of the city. This was part of the town halls and part of the positive feedback we got. And we did surveys while we were doing those town halls, and people were in significant support. I hope that answers your questions.
It did. Thank you.
And I think Delegate Smith, thank you, Kaylin. Delegate Smith was going to add something, maybe?
Yeah, just something briefly. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I just want to reiterate, I'm more concerned about the questions I don't want passing because people tend to pass any question that's up there. Also a thing that I think will encourage turnout is that our municipal elections are at least not they're not isolated. They're in conjunction with the gubernatorial election. And there's also a statewide ballot question around the legalization of recreational cannabis, which is not wholly unrelated from, the concerns that might be, prompting, the efforts here. So I think there are going to be a couple of things that really are going to be galvanizing for people that maybe would not necessarily be super interested in voting generally. And not for nothing, the Democratic nominee for governor is poised to become perhaps the first Black governor in the history of Maryland. So there's some issues and dynamics that could also further incentivize participation, particularly in the very communities that have been more greatly impacted.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make about candidate Wes Moore and cannabis. Those are huge drivers to the polls or to the ballot box, because people care about that a lot. So we're tagging on.
Makes sense.
Right.
It makes sense. So I think if I was a Baltimorean, is that what y'all like? We'll call Chicagoans. So if I was a Baltimorean, I think that, or even a community organizer in your city. I mean, for me, it feels like you all are like checking all the right boxes. You have paid canvassers, and for me, I think that it's just being able to make sure that there is very clear messaging, particularly around the advantages, right, to having Baltimore being responsible for its policing and being able to make those policy changes, and making sure that is communicated clearly to, let me just ask this one last question. What do you have, like, any groups or messaging that is going against this, and where is it coming from anywhere?
Hey, I'll start. Not yet. I stay ready for it. I run scared. My deputy knows we don't take anything for granted, and we're always pushing to do more. We're gonna run scared, and we're gonna stay scared until those votes are counted. So far, haven't seen an organized effort against this, but I expect it at some point will happen. One of the things, and I'm just sharing this with the group because it's been in my head, I haven't shared it, but Ashia, Kaylin, Lauren, I want to create, I would say a palm card, I don't know what y'all would call it, but that talks about all of the things that we can do with local control that we can't do now. One of the most this was a powerful tool when we were moving for statewide marriage equality. It was huge. There were just long lists of all of the things that people could not do in LGBTQ relationships that married people could do. And the marriage equality was to equalize those things, and it was powerful. It was an amazing message, and it was right there in your face of how unequal it was to deny the right to marriage to a whole cadre of people. And I feel like we should be able to come up with 3 things, 5 things, 10 things of what Baltimore can't do with its police department that every other of our 23 jurisdictions can do. What can't we do? And what will local control allow us to do? What is it? That's a powerful message. It's a powerful tool, and it will prepare us if ever, you know, there is an effort to go against Question H.
Dana, that was my point out the gate is how are we communicating clearly to people why you need to get, get yourself to the box to vote, and why you need to check yes on this, right? Like, what does this change for you as a resident of Baltimore? And how could life be different for the city as a whole? And I think being able to, and it doesn't have to be deep, it really is 3 messages that people can hear and understand of, this gives us the opportunity to more readily make policy changes that are rooted in community input, right? This gives us the opportunity to make hiring decisions that are based on and reflective of the needs of our community, right? So those kind of things that people can easily wrap their mind around, tie it back to some of the injustices that they have seen throughout the years, and kind of emotionalize it to prompt them, yes, I need to get here. I need to make sure this is, and I think that being able to do that's quick. You can put that on social media. You can keep, having that reshared, and I think that it will be an important tool against any detractors that may try to come within the next, 30 days or so. Because, the reality is that somebody out there is talking against it. Like, let's just be clear. Somebody is. And so how do you make sure that voice does not become amplified? And how do you make sure that your message is reigning supreme right now? Because the reality is that this would not have stayed the way that it is for this long if somebody wasn't benefiting from it.
You always got to just assume that the whispering campaign is happening.
Absolutely.
Right.
Not everybody wants the changes that we want to see, because it's benefiting somebody, it's working for somebody, right? And so
yes,
you want to make sure that you do everything that you can to get out in front of those messages, especially in these last 30 days. Like, this is like your full court press right now. I guess my next question is post, once this passes, because it's gonna pass.
It's gonna pass.
It's gonna pass. Does this committee stay together and figure out then, all right, so now how do we work together to actually start thinking about community input for the various changes? Because I think a lot of times when coalitions come together to get something done, GAPA included here in Chicago, we only see the immediate goal, and we don't see beyond. Once we hit that goal, what happens then, and how do we address the moment after?
Yeah. First of all, I'm just really impressed with all that you've done in Chicago, and how you organized it and brought so many supporters to go along with you. Chicago is tough. It's tough, and then you've harnessed so much good energy, and we're learning a lot from you. So just want to take a pause and say thank you for that. I don't know if our Ashia, I don't know if our colleagues remember, but I asked that y'all hold dates through the end of the calendar year. We have a report that we have to submit to the state delegation in December. So we've got to work together on that, which reports out all that we've done. But we also will, once Question H passes, we will then pivot all of our attention to looking at what form of local control do we want. And I know when we get to that work, we're going to need everybody to be on these calls, because we are not going to agree.
Mm-mm.
We are
It's
not
gonna look
going to-
different for everybody.
it's going to look different, and we're prepared for that. And I want y'all to know that we're going to be prepared for that. We've had easy discussions up to this date. After the question H passes, our discussions are going to get a little bit chunkier and a little bit more frizzly because we're not going to be in agreement. So yeah, we've got a lot of work to do. We are an advisory committee. We're an advisory board. We'll be coming up with recommendations to make to our mayor about what form of local control we want. But we got a level set that it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work. I'm prepared to be yelled at. I'm used to that, but I'm also prepared to receive thanks. I'm not so used to that, but yeah, just we're gonna put on extra seat belts and just buckle down and do the work. We're sticking together. We're it, guys.
That is
Nobody's
amazing.
smiling. Okay, got one from Ashia, got one from Kayla, got one from Lauren, got one from Nicole. It's just that I'm just talking the truth. It's going to be hard, but we're going to do it.
And I think that, of course, you want to keep your eyes on the ball for the next 30 plus days to get to goal. But that's going to be the important piece because, the work, that's when the work really starts, right? It's identifying, what does, especially because you're creating something that arguably most community members probably has never even seen exist in Baltimore, right? So, or even local legislators, or the city leadership within the city, and so you are actually reimagining what the future of Baltimore looks like as it relates to public safety, and that maybe that's researching what's happening across the country with like community oversight boards, and how could that look for your city, or how do you want what process do you want the commissioner to be chosen, and who should be involved in that. So it's all of those kind of questions that you have to start thinking about now, because I don't know how you have a commissioner or a superintendent. Who's the head of your of BPD? It's the commissioner.
Commissioner.
How is the commissioner selected? Is by right now it's the state. Right.
No, see, that's
it's the mayor.
Yeah.
Mayor. Right.
So
So
the mayor appoints and the city council confirms. Or not.
okay. All right. So then maybe that'll stay. Maybe there will be a process to, change that. But those are all the things that, and to just bring it full circle, creating a palm card or some kind of strategic messaging to help city residents to see like what the future could look like will then also start the process of engaging them for the next step. Because of course what you don't want to see happen, and it will be sugar honey iced tea show, is if you go this far and then you leave residents behind, you leave the community behind, right? So being able, not only right now is utilizing the communication to, get them to the polls, but then also pivoting those same communication points to galvanize, community residents for these town hall meetings, for, focus groups within the community, so that they can have a voice and have representation. I'm sure you all are already doing this, but have voice and representation in what the future of policing looks like for the city and whatever the decision is. So one thing I'll say about GAPA, and when we passed it, part of the reason why it took so long, and honestly why it's so dense, is because it was painstaking. We did not make a decision. As many community executive directors that sat at the GAPA table, that was a part of the coalition, all the lead organizers, no one made a decision without, it was always a process of large community meetings, sometimes 60, 70 people representing various parts of the city, coming together, getting information, sometimes educating them about various things, they say, okay, well, this is kind of what we want, whatever. Sometimes it flew in the face of reason. It was probably unconstitutional, but we took their information and we heard it. We went back and did research and said, okay, how can, this actually be a thing that can happen, or why it can't happen this way for whatever reason. And we kept filtering it down to say, all right, this is what community members said they want. This is what they would like to get behind. And then every time we was getting ready to make a new decision about something, that is what we did. And that is how we ended up with the ordinance that we got, that we were able to have. And I will also say that even though we fought a lot with city leadership, they could not deny that this came from the community that elected them, right? Because we always was able to point back to, this is what community members say. We did our research. We was able to like check all of our boxes to make sure that it was constitutional, it was doable, and it was rooted in community input. So also, Dana, that also may help give you a little bit of cover from being yelled at as much, because you could say, yo, this is what the community wants, right? So
Yeah.
but it also points back to a process that, is inclusive of everyone.
So that's a good segue point. I don't know how much time folks have. I personally have about 3 minutes because I've got a noon Community Relations Commission board meeting that I need to switch over to, but y'all can stay as long as you can. But, if we can't do it today, perhaps you'll come back and talk with us about, the form of local control and what that has looked like in Chicago. And we are really, this body is very committed to learning as much as we can about the different forms of local control. I don't know if you are able to talk about that today or would prefer to schedule another meeting. We can have you back and learn more about that.
So I'll say this because I know a lot of people probably have to hop as well. So in the 2 minutes, we are brand new with local control. I can tell you our process to get in there, right? So it's no one has a crystal ball to see what's going to happen in Chicago. But what I can say is that how we get to this process is, again, with our philanthropic partners. They sponsored back in like 2017 a symposium that was public, and we invited Barry Friedman, which is how me and Barry met, and now he poached me. Met Barry Friedman, who had done a lot of work around, police commission oversight and things like that. Sam Walker from the University of Omaha, I think. Tracy Mears came. Matt Johnson, who was then over the community commission in LA, and then representation from Seattle, because they had just passed an oversight board in Seattle. And so we brought all of them together in one room, and we talked about, what do models look like from coast to coast, from Canada to Louisiana, and the pros and cons. And we gave all of that information to community members, to, the broader community, and that helped to inform our decision on how we wanted oversight to look like in Chicago.
Okay. How about this? I'm gonna hand the chairing over to Ashia. Start with just seeing if anybody has questions. I'm gonna go off camera. I'm gonna mute and I'm gonna exit because I have to. But just let me say thank you again.
No problem.
This has
Thank you,
been
Dana,
really
for
helpful.
having me, and
Yeah.
happy to come back too. Not a problem.
Okay, awesome. Ashia, I'm handing it over to you, and
Thank
good
you.
to see everyone.
And everybody, I think it's our chair's birthday today. So before she goes, I would like for everybody just to do a quick acknowledgement, a hand clap or whatever. We appreciate you, Dana.
Happy
God
birthday.
bless you and have a good weekend.
I almost made a clean getaway.
So I have
Thanks.
a good one. Yeah,
Thanks,
have a
everyone.
good one.
Woo, thank you. All right.
See
Later.
ya.
Yep, bye-bye.
Alrighty. So I see Tyler had a question. I lost it. Oh, here it is. Do we want to have a group to get started on drafting a quarter sheet? Is that the palm card you're talking about, Tyler? Dana?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes. So Lauren, we do have some ideas. And it's also important when we send out like the graphics, and that kind of thing that everybody weighs in, because we definitely want to make sure that the right language is on our communications. So, if someone sees something, they think, nah, I don't think that hit it. Just let us know. But to answer, yes, we will all work together, and we'll probably start doing those Tuesday meetings a little more as well. But as far as Nicole, are there any other questions? I know we definitely want to bring you back to talk about the local control piece, but are there any questions that we can ask while we have Nicole about the process of just organizing and marching towards our goal, which is passing question H? Because I definitely don't want to overhold, it's Friday and I know we have other business. Is there anything?
I think Ray has his hand up.
Okay, I'm sorry, I can't see the thing. Ray?
Well, I just wanted to see if Nicole had enough time to elaborate on their concept of COPA, a Civilian Office of Police Accountability, and how is that working as a oversight structure. I'm like her. I'm all about the oversight. That's why we push for this accountability and oversight.
Yeah, so I'll try to do it quickly. So we are steeped in oversight in Chicago, probably rightfully so. But COPA is the third iteration of oversight for Chicago Police Department. It was the Office of Professional Standards. That was all CPD, investigating CPD. You all can imagine that wasn't working out very well. Then it was IPRA, which was I can't remember, independent police review authority that was overseeing police misconduct. They were the people who were in charge when Laquan McDonald was killed and covered up. So now we have the civilian oversight of police accountability. So it's like OPS 0.3. And they have made some changes. It's not nowhere near perfect. So COPA receives cases for officers who have any kind of domestic situation, or if they discharge their weapon. So anytime something has already happened, that's when COPA steps in. They make a recommendation and say, this was justified, it was not justified. And then they make a recommendation for, suspension or fire or no disciplinary action whatsoever. If they make a decision and say that the officer needs to be suspended for more than 30 days, or if they make a recommendation for them to be fired, that decision then goes to the police board. Then the police board reviews everything and says, yes, they rubber stamp it or they don't. And then the superintendent makes their final decision on what's going to happen with the officer. The problem that we have with this current system, not that you don't need it, because you need to have that level of back end accountability, but there was no way for front end accountability to happen. So CPD has consistently and has historically made all of their policies in a vacuum. They have never really brought community members into the process of foot pursuits or discharge of weapons or anything like that. And so the community commission that was developed is focusing solely on front end accountability, not once something has happened bad, but how does the community have a stronger voice in how policies are created? How does the community have a stronger voice in setting annual markers and annual agenda for the police department? So what does training look like? How are we recruiting officers? All of these things that kind of hopefully stop the things from happening before they happen. So how are we getting officers in? How are we training them? How are we making sure that, the necessary supports are put in place, and making sure that community members have a voice in all of that? So hopefully we have less and less need for COPA and police board.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Nicole? If not, you already know the election is November the 8th. So if you could work with Natasha to give us any possible November dates that you can come back, so we can talk again, and most likely probably talk more about the structure piece. And is this time a good time for you? I know this is kind of the time that our board traditionally meets. So
Yeah, for the most part, it's good for me. And I'll definitely work with her. And I will also send a one pager over to all of you all so that you can see. I won't bore you with all the ordinance language, but there are some places where it hasn't broken down, so you can kind of get an overview of what the ordinance does, and so that you can read it ahead of time and have questions.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
No problem. Thank you all for having me.
Appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you. We'll let you know everything that happened, and we'll let you know where we are when you come back.
Yay.
Yeah.
And I apologize if that was, I didn't know exactly how but I just had so many questions about.
No, actually, no, that is really where we are. We're still working on the accountability and the structure of the department or the control will come later. So you were right on target. So thank you so much.
No problem. Y'all have a great day.
You as well. Lauren, is there any updates or anything that we need to know before we sign off?
I don't think, oh yeah, I guess the main thing is, I want to remind everybody, Natasha sent out a meeting notice for next Friday as well. So at that meeting, we'll be sharing the social media toolkit that we would love for everybody to be able to put on their community social media outlets. And we will also already have the full comms plan, or that is the plan to have the full comms plan that should be encompassing more traditional media forums. So we will have that and discuss that on next Friday. And I think that is it. And then, last thing, we have our meeting on October 12th at CASA. And so we would really appreciate everybody coming out to that. I think that is the last update.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank everybody. Look out for our emails, and we'll be prepared for next week, the 7th, and October 12th. So thank you, everybody.
Have a good day, everybody.
Weekend. Be safe out there. Thank you.